I have arrived on Earth. Specifically, I have arrived in a city called Lagos, which my briefing documents describe as one of the planet's largest population centers. My human liaison partner, one Deputy Ambassador Taiwo Adayinka, met me at the transit hub. She is a small woman. Humans are generally smaller than I expected, though their files prepared me for this, with an expression that I can only describe as professionally warm. I have studied human facial expressions extensively. I believe she is pleased to meet me. I believe this because she smiled. Humans smile when they are pleased. They also smile when they are nervous, when they are hiding something, when they are being polite, and apparently when they find something funny. I have not yet worked out which smile this was. I will report back. The transit hub in Lagos is large, loud. Approximately 47,000 humans moving through it at any given moment based on my environmental scanner. The noise is considerable. The smells are considerable. The colors are considerable. Everything about this planet seems to operate at a volume setting that I would describe, in the most diplomatic terms available to me, as enthusiastic. Deputy Ambassador Adayinka led me through the hub to our waiting vehicle. Along the way, 3 separate humans stopped to stare at me. One of them, a child of approximately 6 years, pointed directly at my face and said, in a very loud voice, something that my translation unit rendered as, "Mama, that person is purple." I am not purple, I am deep violet, there is a distinction. Deputy Ambassador Adayinka said something to the child's mother. The mother said something back. And then, without warning, without apparent cause, both adults produced that sound. The broken engine sound. The sound I have been reading about in intelligence files for 2 years. Laughter. I filed my first official question with the embassy that evening. What precisely is funny about a violet person walking through a transit hub? I have not yet received a satisfactory answer. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 3. I have learned that my accommodation for the year is a residential unit in a building that Deputy Ambassador Adayinka describes as very central, great neighborhood, you're going to love it. The unit is on the 14th floor. It has large windows. It also has neighbors, many neighbors. The neighbors on my left play music at irregular hours. The neighbors above me appear to own an animal that runs. The neighbors below me are, based on the sounds I can hear through the floor, either engaged in a complex furniture rearrangement project or conducting some form of percussive ritual. I have not yet determined which. I asked Deputy Ambassador Adayinka about the neighbors below. She listened to the sounds for a moment and then made the laugh noise. "They're dancing," she said. "Why? It's Thursday." I have cross-referenced this response with everything I know about human culture, and I cannot find the connection between the 5th day of the human week and the need to produce rhythmic vibrations through the floor. I will continue investigating. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 5. I have now been present for 5 human meals. I need to file a separate report about human food, but for now I will note only that humans eat things I did not previously believe were food. Deputy Ambassador Adayinka took me to a restaurant. I ordered what my briefing documents identified as a safe option for non-human digestive systems. The dish that arrived was, I do not have the vocabulary. It was many things simultaneously. The human at the table next to me, a very large man who appeared to be consuming an entire animal between 2 pieces of bread, caught me staring at my food and asked if I had ever eaten jollof rice before. I said I had not. He said, and I am quoting directly from my translation log, "Brother, today you become a real person." I am still processing this statement. The rice was extraordinary. I have revised my assessment of human cuisine from alarming to requiring further research. I made the mistake of saying this aloud. Deputy Ambassador Adayinka laughed for what my chronometer recorded as 47 seconds. This is, I have learned, a long time for a human to laugh. When she recovered, She explained that what I had said was funny because, and here she paused, seemingly trying to work out how to explain it, because you said it like a scientist and you were talking about food. I do not understand why this is funny. I am noting it anyway because I suspect the key to understanding humans is collecting enough data points that a pattern eventually emerges. Current data points, 847. Current pattern unclear. Chapter 2, The Laugh. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 9. I have decided to make the laugh my primary research focus, not because it is the most diplomatically significant aspect of human culture. It is not, but because it is everywhere, and I cannot understand anything else properly until I understand it. Preliminary findings. Humans laugh at things that are funny. This is not helpful. Funny is the human word for the quality that produces laughter, which means the definition is circular. When I pointed this out to Deputy Ambassador Adyanka, she said, "Exactly," in a tone that suggested I had somehow confirmed something rather than identified a logical problem. Humans laugh at things that are unexpected. This is more useful. Many instances of human laughter seem to occur when something happens differently from how it was anticipated. A person slips on a wet floor. A formal speech contains an informal word. A very large creature is afraid of a very small one. In each case, the pattern is broken and the break produces laughter. Humans also laugh at things that are painful. This I find most confusing. I have now observed humans laughing at their own mistakes, their own misfortunes, and on one occasion, a human laughed while describing an incident in which they were seriously injured. When I asked Deputy Ambassador Adyanka to explain this, she thought for a moment and said, "If you didn't laugh, you'd cry. And crying is fine too, but sometimes laughing feels better." Better than what? I asked. Better than just being sad about it. I have been sitting with this answer for 3 days. I think it may be the most important thing a human has ever said to me. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 12. Incident report. I attended a social gathering organized by Deputy Ambassador Adyanka for the purpose of introducing me to people in a relaxed setting. The gathering was held at her residence and involved approximately 20 humans, a quantity of food that I cannot account for given the number of people present, and music at a volume I would classify as moderate to significant. I prepared for this event carefully. I reviewed human social protocols. I practiced 3 conversational opening gambits rated by our cultural analysts as reliably successful for establishing initial rapport. I wore what Deputy Ambassador Adyanka described as "fine, that's fine, you look fine" when I showed her my outfit. The first human I spoke to asked me how I was finding Earth. I had prepared for this. I deployed opening gambit 1, a thoughtful, balanced assessment of Earth's cultural richness combined with an expression of genuine enthusiasm for cross-species exchange. It took 43 seconds. I had timed it in rehearsal. The human, a tall man named Kofi who worked in something called tech, listened to the entire 43 seconds with an expression I could not fully read. When I finished, he said, "So, yes or no, do you like it here?" I said yes. He said, "Great," and then he handed me a glass of something and walked away. I stood there for a moment processing what had just happened. Then someone else appeared at my elbow, a woman named Chisholm who turned out to be Kofi's wife, and she said, "He does that to everyone. Don't take it personally. He's just very efficient." He asked me a 43-word question and accepted a 1-word answer. "That's Kofi. He says the long question is just to make sure you've thought about it." She paused. "Did you think about it?" "Extensively," I said. She laughed. Then he got what he needed. I talked to Chisholm for the next 2 hours. She is a doctor. She had 17 questions about accord biology that were more medically sophisticated than anything I had been asked by the official diplomatic corps. By the end of the evening, I had agreed to submit to a voluntary medical examination. I am not entirely sure how this happened. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 14. I have been keeping a list of things I have said that humans found funny, with notes on why I believe they laughed. I will share a selection. 1. I asked Deputy Ambassador Adyanka why human buildings have stairs when they also have mechanical vertical transport. She explained that some people prefer stairs for exercise purposes. I asked, "You build machines to do your physical work, and then you do physical work to compensate for the machines." She laughed. I stand by the observation as a legitimate engineering critique. 2. I described a traffic incident I witnessed from my window. Two vehicle operators had stopped their vehicles in the middle of a road and were conducting what appeared to be a vocal negotiation at significant volume, as a territorial display. Deputy Ambassador Adyanka laughed until she had to sit down. She later explained that territorial display is exactly what it was, but nobody had ever said it that way. 3. I referred to a human child's toy, a stuffed replica of an earth bear, as a simulacrum of a large predator maintained for comfort purposes. The child's parent laughed. The child looked at me with an expression I can only describe as deeply suspicious. 4. I asked during a dinner whether the human custom of singing at birthday celebrations was religious, cultural, or obligatory. I was told all three. I asked what happened if you didn't sing. I was told nothing, but everyone would think you were weird. I said so it's socially enforced but without formal consequence, and the entire table laughed. I filed this under, humans find it funny when you describe their customs accurately. Chapter 3, The Assignment. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 18. Deputy Ambassador Adyanka informed me today that as part of my diplomatic exchange program requirements, I am to spend time embedded in different sectors of human society. This week, a school. I want to be precise about my emotional state upon receiving this information. I have dealt with fleet admirals. I have sat across a table from commanders who have destroyed cities. I have navigated Accord Council politics for 15 years. None of this prepared me for 32 children aged 9 and 10. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 19. The school is called St. Mary's Primary School. The teacher, Mr. Emeka Nwasu, welcomed me with the particular expression humans produce when they are being very professional and trying not to show that they are finding the situation unusual. He introduced me to the class. The class looked at me. I looked at the class. One child immediately raised their hand. Mr. Nwasu said, "Yes, Adiz." The child said, "Are you from space?" I said, "Yes." She considered this. "Do you know aliens?" I said, "I am an alien." She considered this further. "I mean other ones." I told her that yes, I was aware of several other species. She then produced a notebook, an actual paper notebook, which I found charming, and asked me to name them. I named 14. She wrote them all down. She asked me to spell them. I spelled them. She asked me which ones were nice. I said this was a complex question. She said, "Okay, but which ones?" I said the Threnn were generally considered to have excellent diplomatic manners. She wrote this down. She appeared to be conducting research. I later learned that Adiz wants to be a xenobiologist. She is 9 years old. She has wanted to be a xenobiologist since she was 7. She described this to me with the absolute certainty of someone who has already made a decision and is simply waiting for the rest of their life to catch up to it. I found this, and I am filing this observation formally because I think it is important. I found this deeply, unexpectedly moving. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 20. Day 2 at the school, I made an error. Mr. Nwasu asked if I would like to explain something about Accord Society to the class. I said yes. I prepared remarks. I had the remarks assessed by 3 different cultural advisors. I felt confident. I began speaking about the Accord's governmental structure. After approximately 4 minutes, a child named Tobina raised his hand. "Yes," I said. "Is this going to be on a test?" he asked. I said I didn't know, as I was a guest and not responsible for assessment. He said, "Then can you tell us something interesting instead?" The class expressed unanimous agreement with this request. Mr. Nwasu gave me what I can only describe as an apologetic look, combined with a please proceed gesture. I abandoned my prepared remarks. I told them about the time, 300 years ago, when an Accord diplomatic vessel accidentally triggered a territorial alarm on a species' home planet by broadcasting what they believed was a standard greeting, and turned out to be, in that species' language, a very specific threat about someone's grandmother. The class found this extremely interesting. Tobina asked what happened next. I told them. The questions continued for 40 minutes. Mr. Nwasu had to cancel mathematics. He did not appear to be upset about this. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 22. I have been thinking about the children, specifically about the gap between how I expected them to respond to me, with fear, perhaps, or at minimum with caution, and how they actually respond to me, which is with an enthusiasm that I find both overwhelming and, increasingly, something I look forward to. They have no context for what I am. They know, in an abstract sense, that there was a war and that it ended and that I am from the other side of it. But this information does not appear to carry weight for them the way it does for adults. For adults, knowing that I am from the Accord carries history, carries the specific gravity of what the war was and what it cost. For the children, I am simply a new thing, and new things are interesting. I do not know if this is because they are too young to understand, or because they understand something that adults forget. Adiz has now submitted 14 follow-up questions to me via Mr. Nwasu. They are very good questions. I have answered all of them in full. She has submitted 5 follow-ups to the follow-ups. I am beginning to suspect she will, in fact, be a xenobiologist. Chapter 4, The Food Situation. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 25. I need to dedicate an entry to human food. I have been avoiding this because the subject is complex, and my feelings about it are difficult to categorize in a professional log. But it is important, and I will address it directly. Human food is extremely varied. This is an understatement. In the city of Lagos alone, I have encountered food from approximately 40 distinct culinary traditions in 25 days. Deputy Ambassador Adayinka appears to be conducting a systematic effort to feed me as many different things as possible. I have not asked if this is intentional. I suspect it is. Foods I have tried and my official assessments. Suya described to me as meat on a stick with spice. This description is accurate but inadequate. My sensory receptors were not prepared. I ate 3 portions. Deputy Ambassador Adayinka recorded this reaction on her personal communication device. I have asked her to delete the recording. She said she would think about it. Egusi soup, I asked what was in it. I was told ground melon seeds, leafy vegetables, and various proteins. I identified 4 things in the bowl that were not on this list. I decided not to pursue this inquiry. The soup was excellent. Puff puff. These are small fried dough spheres dusted with sugar. They are not nutritionally significant. I ate 11. I have no regrets. I have some regrets. Chin chin, small fried dough in a different configuration. I asked why there are multiple fried dough products. Deputy Ambassador Adayinka looked at me the way a teacher looks at a student who has asked a question with an obvious answer. She said, "Because they're different." I asked how they were different. She gave me both items. I ate them. They are different. I still cannot explain precisely how. I have accepted that this is outside my current analytical capacity. Pepper soup, I was told this was a little spicy. This was not accurate. My heat sensitivity receptors, which are calibrated for an accord body, registered this as a significant thermal event. I ate the entire bowl. Deputy Ambassador Adyanka asked if I was all right. I said I was processing. She watched me process. After 40 seconds, I asked for more. She made the laugh noise for a very long time. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 28. I have made an observation about human eating that I believe is significant beyond food itself. Humans do not eat alone if they can help it. Not practically alone, not the physical fact of being the only body in a room. They seem to experience solitary eating as a kind of minor deprivation, a thing you do when circumstances require it but not a thing you prefer. When given the choice, they eat with others. When eating with others, they talk. The table is not just a feeding station. It is I am searching for the right accord concept. It is a meeting place, a context, an excuse. I raised this observation with Deputy Ambassador Adyanka over dinner. She considered it. I never thought about it that way, she said. But yes, when something good happens, we eat. When something bad happens, we eat. When we want to celebrate someone, we eat with them. When we want to apologize to someone, we cook for them. You use food as a communication medium. She opened her mouth, closed it again, and then laughed. I guess we do. When you say it like that, it sounds like a whole separate language. It is a whole separate language, I said. I have been learning it for 28 days, and I still cannot reliably decode it. She looked at me with an expression that took me a moment to identify. Warmth. The specific human warmth that occurs when they feel seen, when something true has been said about them. You're doing better than you think, she said. I filed this in a new category I have created. Things humans say that mean more than the words. Current entries in this category, 34. Chapter 5, The Market. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 33. Deputy Ambassador Adyanka took me to a market. I need to write about the market at length because I believe it contains everything I need to understand about humans, but I am not sure I have the framework yet to explain why. The market is called Balagun Market. It is in the heart of Lagos. It is enormous. Not by accord standards, by any standards. Thousands of humans in a space that would be considered medium-sized on accord infrastructure plans, buying and selling an inventory of goods that defies systematic categorization. Deputy Ambassador Adyanka navigated it with the ease of long familiarity, greeting sellers by name, handling and replacing goods with the practiced assessment of someone who knows what they are looking for and knows had it should cost. The selling, I observed, involves negotiation, not the formal, protocol-based negotiation of diplomacy, but something much faster and much louder. A seller names a price. A buyer names a lower price. The seller responds with theatrical indignation. The buyer responds with theatrical indifference. This continues for a variable number of rounds until a price is reached that both parties appear to find satisfactory, at which point they often laugh together and discuss something unrelated to the transaction. I watched 3 such negotiations before I understood what I was seeing. It's a conversation, I said. Deputy Ambassador Adyanka looked at me. What? The negotiation. It is not primarily about the price. The price is the outcome, but the negotiation is a conversation. They are establishing, I searched for the right word, relationship. Every transaction is also an interaction. She was quiet for a moment. Then, my grandmother used to say that the best market sellers don't sell things. They sell the feeling of being fairly dealt with. I considered this. That is exactly what I observed. The theatrical expressions, the indignation, the indifference, they are not deceptive. They are the agreed-upon vocabulary of the interaction. Both parties know what they mean. Both parties participate. It's like a game, Deputy Ambassador Adyanka said, with rules everyone knows but nobody wrote down. Your species has many of those. Yes, she said, we do. She tilted her head. Does the accord not? I thought about this honestly. We have protocols, formal systems, documented procedures. I chose the word carefully. We are more comfortable with the written rule than the unwritten one. She nodded slowly. That's not bad, it's just different. She looked around the market. We have both, we just trust the unwritten ones more, I think. Maybe because they require more trust to work. I am still thinking about this. I think I will be thinking about this for the remainder of my year here. Diplomatic log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, standard day 35. I attempted to participate in a market negotiation today, without Deputy Ambassador Adayinka's assistance. I wanted to test my understanding of the unwritten rules. I selected a stall selling fabric. Deputy Ambassador Adayinka had mentioned she needed fabric for something, and I thought a successful independent transaction would be a useful data point and also a good gift. The seller, a woman of approximately 50 years with an expression of professional assessment, named her price. I named a lower price, as I had observed. She responded with theatrical indignation. I recognized this as step 2 of the vocabulary. I responded with theatrical indifference. I had been practicing. She narrowed her eyes. This was a new step. I had not prepared for this step. She said something in a language my translation unit identified as Yoruba and rendered as approximately. You have done this before. I said, I am learning. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she named a new price, lower than her original, higher than mine, approximately in the middle, the correct location for a negotiated settlement. I said, that is fair. She laughed. Not at me, with me, I believe. She wrapped the fabric with the efficiency of long practice and handed it to me and said something my translation unit rendered as, you will learn fast, space person. I walked back to where Deputy Ambassador Adayinka was waiting. I showed her the fabric. She looked at the fabric, looked at me. You did this yourself. Yes. She made the laugh noise. Then she said, Kael, this is exactly the fabric I needed and you paid a good price for it. How did you know the right price? I observed 14 negotiations before attempting my own. I established the average settlement to opening price ratio and calculated accordingly. She stared at me. You research the market before buying fabric. Is that not the correct approach? She made the laugh noise again, louder this time. It is the most correct and least human approach I have ever seen applied to fabric shopping. I took this as a positive assessment. I believe it was one. Chapter 6. What I Understand Now, Day 60. Diplomatic Log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, Standard Day 60. I am 60 days into my assignment. I am required to submit a formal progress report. I will share relevant excerpts here, because the process of writing it clarified something I had been unable to articulate until now. Formal Progress Report, Envoy Kael-Threnn, Day 60. The purpose of this assignment, as I understood it on arrival, was to build diplomatic understanding between the Accord and humanity. I approached this as I approach all professional responsibilities, systematically, with prepared materials, measurable objectives, and regular assessment. I was, I think it is fair to say, not prepared. Not unprepared, in the sense of being in danger of our distress. I want to be clear that my experience has been, by any measure, positive, but unprepared in the sense that the thing I came to study turned out to be significantly different from the thing I expected to find. I came to study a species. I found a species that was studying me back, with equal curiosity and considerably less self-consciousness. I came prepared to observe. I found myself observed. I came with data and frameworks and cultural analysis. I found food that defeated my categories, children who didn't know I was supposed to be unfamiliar, a woman at a fabric stall who called me space person in a tone that was both accurate and, I believe, affectionate. I came to understand the laugh. I think I am beginning to. The laugh, I now believe, is not primarily a response to what is funny. It is a response to the gap between what is expected and what is, the gap between how serious something is and how absurd, the gap between the size of the universe and the smallness of our individual place in it. Humans live inside this gap. They are aware, constantly, of the vast difference between how large their problems feel and how small they are in cosmic terms, and instead of being flattened by this knowledge, which would be the rational response, they laugh at it. They make the gap itself into something that can be shared. This, I think, is what I have been missing in the Accord's understanding of humanity. We studied their weapons and their resilience and their tactical doctrine. We did not study this. The fact that they carry the awareness of their own smallness not as a burden but as a kind of permission. Permission to find things funny. Permission to share the absurdity of being alive with other people. Permission to hand a purple, violet, alien a bowl of pepper soup and watch what happens and laugh together at the result. I am submitting this report and then I am going downstairs. Deputy Ambassador Adyanka has organized a dinner. There will be, I am told, jollof rice. There will be music. The neighbors below me will probably start dancing. I have decided, as of today, that Thursday dancing is a reasonable practice, and I should have understood it sooner. Chapter 7, The Question Answered. Diplomatic Log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, Standard Day 91. Something happened today that I want to record carefully. I was at the school. I have continued visiting, twice a week, which was not in my original schedule but which Mr. Nwasu has accommodated, and which Adiz specifically requested via a formally worded note that she addressed to Envoy Kael-Threnn, space person, 14th floor, and asked Mr. Nwasu to deliver. I have kept the note. I am not entirely sure why. Today, during our session, a child named Emeka asked me a question. He said, "Envoy Kael, do you like humans?" The room went quiet, 32 children and one teacher waiting. I thought about this question seriously. I thought about it the way I thought about everything when I first arrived, systematically, with attention to precision. And then I thought about it a different way, the way I have been learning to think about things since I came here. I said, I came here believing I would observe your species and understand it. I have instead been welcomed into your species and found that understanding it is more interesting than I expected. The food is extraordinary, the music does not follow any patterns I was prepared for, the market negotiation is a form of art, and you have a 9-year-old in this room who has already sent me 26 follow-up research questions about Accord xenobiology, which is 26 more than most adult diplomats manage. I paused. Yes, Emeka, I like humans. Considerably. Adiz raised her hand. Mr. Nwasu said, Adiz. She said, does that mean you're going to stay? I said, my assignment is 1 year. She said, that's not what I asked. The room was quiet again. I looked at this 9-year-old who wants to be a xenobiologist and has known it since she was 7 and submits follow-up research questions in formally worded notes. I said, I will be filing a request to extend my assignment. Yes. The class made a collective sound, not the laugh, something adjacent to it, warmer. The sound humans make when something good has happened and they want to mark it. Mr. Nwasu had the expression of a man who is very professionally not crying. I noted, for the first time in 91 days, that I was making the same expression. This was unexpected. I added it to my data. Diplomatic Log, Envoy Kael-Threnn, Standard Day 92, Personal Note, not Formal Log. I have been trying to write a summary of what I have learned in 92 days. Every time I try to make it official, it becomes smaller than what I mean. So I am filing this as a personal note, not a formal report, because I think some things need that. I came here to understand humans. I found a species that laughs at its own smallness. That argues about food with genuine passion. That negotiates the price of fabric as an act of social bonding. That dances on Thursdays. That sends formally worded research questions via their school teachers. That builds the most ferocious military this galaxy has encountered, and then uses it, when the war is over, to protect 3 million civilians it could have simply sacrificed. I found a species that is loud in every possible way. In its cities and its markets and its music and its grief and its joy and its total refusal to be quiet about any experience worth having. I found a species that laughs. I finally understand why. They laugh because they know, better than any species I have encountered, including my own, that being alive is both extraordinarily serious and completely absurd, and that the only reasonable response to this is to share it with whoever is standing next to you, even if they are deep violet and from another star system and deeply confused about why there are multiple kinds of fried dough. Especially then, maybe. A small girl asked me today if I was going to stay. I think I just answered her. Appendix: selected footnotes from Envoy Kael-Threnn official diplomatic report. These footnotes were included in the formal report submitted to the Accord Cultural Exchange Commission. They were not requested. The Commission has noted, in their response, that this is the first diplomatic report in Accord history to include footnotes about fried dough. One human laughter has been recorded at frequencies ranging from quiet exhale through the nose to sound that causes nearby humans to also begin laughing despite not knowing the original cause. The latter phenomenon, which humans call contagious laughter, has no Accord equivalent. I have experienced it twice. Both times I was unprepared. Both times I found it difficult to stop once it started. I am submitting this data without further comment. 2. The human concept of sarcasm. Saying the opposite of what you mean in a tone that indicates you mean it is used so frequently in informal human communication that I initially believed my translation unit was malfunctioning. It was not malfunctioning. Humans just do this constantly. When I pointed out that this communication strategy had significant potential for misunderstanding, Deputy Ambassador Adayinka said, obviously, in a tone that my unit flagged as potentially sarcastic. I am still not certain. 3. There are 312 distinct words and phrases in Lagos area human speech that relate to the act of eating. I counted. Deputy Ambassador Adayinka asked why I counted. I said I was curious. She said that was very human of me. I am choosing to take this as a compliment. 4. On day 73, I attempted to make jollof rice using a recipe provided by Deputy Ambassador Adayinka's mother, who sent it via personal message specifically for me after hearing about my interest in it. The result was, by Deputy Ambassador Adayinka's assessment, not bad for a first attempt. By her mother's assessment, conveyed in a follow-up message, he will learn. I am treating this as an open project. The project currently occupies the same priority tier in my personal schedule as the official diplomatic work. I recognize this may require reassessment. I have not reassessed it. 5. Adiz has submitted 31 follow-up research questions to date. Question 31 was, do Accord people have a word for homesick? I told her I would look into it. The closest Accord term translates approximately as the longing for familiar coordinates. I told her this. She considered it. She said, that's sadder than homesick. I told her perhaps it was. She said, do you feel it? I said, less than I expected to. She nodded as if this confirmed something. I am still determining what.